Hey everyone, it's Cradiac. Back for another work log video for the GameCube Portable. I think I'm on number 7 now. So just gonna do a quick little video. I'm getting pretty close to being finished. As I'm saying that, I'm pretty sure I've said that for like the last 5 videos, but I am really close. There's only I think a couple things I have to do, and then it'll be ready to paint. So very close. Since the last video, a couple things I've done. I hooked up my audio amplifier. And I've got 2 speakers in. They're not glued in just yet. I'm not gonna permanently fix them in there until after I painted it, because if I do, I'll have to cover up this little grill here. But I've got a speaker here and I've got a speaker here. I think last time I was debating whether or not to do 1 or 2 speakers, but I went ahead and did 2. They're pretty small. They're pretty small speakers, but they sound pretty nice, I think. So I just drilled the little speaker holes here. And then I've got the audio amplifier volume buttons hooked in parallel with the screen controls. So the screen controls, this button and this button are what goes up and down. I think this is actually up and this is down. I think I've got it upside down of what it would normally be. So it's just inverted controls, but that's not a big deal. So anyways, this is like for contrast, saturation, stuff like that. This would bring it up, this would bring it down. But these only activate if you hit this button in the middle first to activate the screen controls. So what I did is I hooked the volume buttons up to this. So as long as you haven't activated that, as long as you're not in the menu for the screen, you can just use these 2 buttons to adjust the volume as well. Currently, I think I've got a wire crossed or something, because both of them turn the volume down. They both do, so I'll have to fix that. But anyways, all the buttons and stuff are still working. I had a bit of a snafu with the battery. I made a mistake. I thought that the battery needed to be turned off. Here's the battery I'm using. It's a Talent Cell 12-volt battery pack. So I thought that the battery had to be turned off in order to charge. It actually has to be turned on in order to charge, which is a bit of a problem because the GameCube is wired directly to that battery pack control board. So with the battery turned on to charge, it basically every time you charge it, it would turn on the GameCube. Originally, when I thought it had to be turned off, I was going to have the same problem, except with a certain switch that I was going to use. I was going to use a dual, dual push, dual throw. I can't remember. It's a DP-DT switch, and basically that would have allowed me to turn the battery pack off and the GameCube off, and keep those on separate channels. I don't know, I'm sounding confused. But basically that switch was going to allow me to make sure that when it was charging that the GameCube didn't turn on. But since the switch has to be turned on and the battery pack has to be turned on, there's no way for me to bypass that unless I use 2 switches. So that's what I had to do. So this was the switch that I found. It's kind of huge because it's the only one that I could find that was a DP-DT switch. I'll show you what that looks like. Hang on a second. So this is what that switch looks like. So it's got 2, so it's one switch, maybe it's a dual pin single throw, I don't know. But anyways, basically only 1 switch, but these 2 sides are independent of each other. So that would have, I thought that was the solution, but since the battery pack has to be turned on in order to charge, which is kind of peculiar, that wouldn't have worked. So what I had to do is, after I installed this, I figured that out. So after I installed this, I had to put a second switch, so that way I can have this turn the battery pack on so it can charge. And then this right here, this push button, is what powers the GameCube on. That way, as long as this is off, even with it charging, the GameCube won't turn on. So anyways, kind of a long explanation to explain something real simple, but long story short, I did have to end up putting 2 switches on, which I didn't want to. I wanted the GameCube and the battery to both be controlled with the same switch, but with the battery pack that I used, that just wasn't possible. So I also put 2 LEDs in here. This is the one on the left here. I think the LED's bad. It's not working right now, or I've got it wired wrong. So I'll get that fixed. But basically, this one's going to be red. I thought this one was green, but I think it's actually yellow. But I'm just going to leave it. So the red one is going to come on as soon as the battery pack is turned on, as soon as the battery's on. And then whenever the GameCube is on, it's supposed to turn this one off and switch it to the green or yellow, whichever one it is, to indicate that the GameCube is running. So I've got this one working, okay. This one's not running, I don't think. And then I also had to put in a switch for the disk drive cover. I was debating whether or not to do that, but it's pretty easy, so I went ahead and did it. So if you're playing a game like Resident Evil 4 that requires you to switch game disks because there's multiple game disks, this, by flipping it up, that will simulate the disk drive cover lid being open, so that way you can switch the disk. So this right here is the fan is on the other end of this. I tried to just freehand with my Dremel. I was planning on just putting slits because I've seen people do that before, and doing it by hand just really didn't. I mean, you can look at it, it looks pretty awful. So at this late in the game, and I've already epoxied the fan in, I'm just gonna leave it unless it starts to overheat, because I don't know if you can tell. Let me adjust the light here. The you can't really see, but the circle, like the middle part of the fan, is right here. So the blades are like there. So the slits don't even really cover the blades that well for the fan blades, which means that almost as much air gets pushed back into the GameCube as it does come out. So I'm just gonna have to do some different running tests and stuff to see how hot it gets. It does get pretty hot. I've tested it. It does get pretty hot. But it wasn't quite hot enough that I couldn't touch it. I could put my finger on it and leave it there, but just barely. It was almost too hot to do that. So if it ends up being too hot, I'm going to have to take the fan off, and then I'll probably just cut this whole section out and then put a little speaker grill in, or a little fan grill in there, like what you would have on, you know, computers or whatever, where it's got, you know, different squares or something like that with a little piece of mesh over it, something like that, just to provide better ventilation. So I'm just going to see, at this point, since I'm so close to being done, I don't want to put more work on myself than I need to. I'm kind of in a hurry to finish this. As far as the battery indicator, so the board that I'm using, it's got 5 LEDs to indicate how charged the battery is, and I didn't want to have to wire 5 LEDs in parallel with that and then install them like I did with these two, because it was just going to be, at this point, space is becoming a little bit of an issue because I've got a lot packed in here. So I didn't want to have to try to figure out where I can fit 5 LEDs without it interfering with anything else. So what I did is I just cut out a spot here. I'm going to try to touch it up a little bit because I didn't cut it perfectly. And I've got a piece of acrylic here. It's like smoked tinted acrylic, and it just gives you a little window so you can see those LEDs on the board inside here. It's not perfect, but it doesn't look too bad, and that gives you an ability to see how charged your battery is, especially helpful if you're charging it, to make sure that it does gain a charge. And then on that note, I put the charging port right here on the side. And I think that that's pretty much all that I've done since the last update video. I had to do a lot of rewiring because I had everything working, but I didn't have it set to charge correctly because it was set to charge whenever it was turned off. So anyways, whenever you power it on, there's a, oh, that's another thing I have to do. That what you're hearing right there, there's some wires that cross over the fan, and whenever you hold it like this, it's fine, but whenever you switch it over this way, the just gravity pulling those wires down touches the fan, so I'm going to have to put a little cover over that or something. But anyways, this does have a light on there. The light that it came with didn't work because it was intended to be used on a 120 volt switch, and I didn't have enough voltage to work that LED because it was a pretty strong LED. So I just replaced that LED with a regular one with a 1K ohm resistor. So that's on there. Here's the that's where you can see the battery level. See, once you turn it over, it goes away. And then, so the fan is running. You can hear it. But the GameCube's not on until you push that. And then there's the little light, so. And actually, I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to enter the menu so you can see the switch at work. Oh, there we go. Okay, I must have a loose wire or something because the screen just went out on me for a second. So the switch again is right there. So flipping that. So yeah, I've got a loose wire on my screen. I'll have to fix that. Like I said, everything's kind of tight in there right now. It could also be that the battery is starting to get a little bit low too, and the screen's not getting enough power, but let me reset it and see if I can get that working. Okay. I noticed whenever I was testing things out before that if the battery gets a little low, the screen will often go white before it completely dies. So anyways, I'll double check on my wiring and stuff and make sure that something's not loose. It's very possible that it is. So the last thing that I have to do is fix the volume buttons. So once it starts up, I'll show you the problem that I'm having. And I have to get the memory card wired. And I think that's it. I'm pretty sure that those are the only two things that I have yet to do. So that goes down. So they both lower the volume. So I gotta fix that, so I gotta fix the button there. I gotta fix this LED, and I have to put the memory card in there. It's just gonna be hopefully embedded in there. If I can't fit it, then I'll actually put a port for it, but I honestly think that would take more space than just sticking it in there. So all the buttons work. The C-stick has been holding good. I know I mentioned in the last video that I put the orientation of the housing in wrong, so it can't go down, up, down, left, or right as much as it's supposed to, and it was giving me some issues, but I've got it secured in there pretty well, and I haven't had any problems since I messed with that. So everything's working okay. It doesn't shut down. I think last time I ran it, that I tested it, I ran it for about 20 minutes, and it didn't shut down, so it didn't overheat too bad. So I'm just going to do some more messing around with it and see how it works, and the next time hopefully it'll be painted and done. I'm probably not going to make another update video until it's 100% finished. I was planning on doing a really ambitious paint job and painting it Super Mario Brothers themed with like the whole NES, Mario background and everything, but I've been working on this thing for a really long time. I think I'm just going to take the path of least resistance and spray paint the thing a solid color. So I don't know, we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll change my mind, but so that's where I'm at, and thanks for checking out the video. I will see you all hopefully very, very soon with a finished product. So talk to you all next time.